The ranking member of the Subcommittee on Oversight and Investigations is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I just want to take a moment at the beginning of my remarks and say thank you to you and to our ranking member, Howard Berman, for their service during this Congress, your friendship, your work. Also, really to wish well our colleagues in this next Congress, the entire committee, but particularly Ed Royce and Elliot Engel as they take over the leadership of this committee. And this next Congress is going to have a full plate. I think the hearing today is really just a preview of that. I also want to acknowledge the work and leadership of Secretary Clinton. She has aggressively, her entire team, and thank you for your service, all of our diplomats everywhere, for the Secretary's leadership in embracing all 29 of the board's recommendations and her strong commitment to have the implementation of all the recommendations well underway even before the next Secretary of State is in place. I also want to, I guess, admonish my colleagues on the committee. There's a long tradition of bipartisanship in this committee, how we should be standing side by side when we are dealing with attacks on our people overseas. It really cheapens that to make it into some kind of a gotcha game, or to try to make it into some conspiracy to dupe voters in November by the words used or the causes of this horrible tragedy that happened in Libya. So this is really about, I believe, our foreign policy, the very core interest of our country, how we're seen around the world, our national security, our economic success, our fundamental values. That's what it's about. And it's bigger than Libya. We're going to see this in countries across the globe, country by country, these same kind of repeated challenges. We have to stay focused on that. Let's not backslide into pettiness from either side. Let's really focus on what needs to be done. And I guess for our witnesses here today, really just two quick questions. Because of this very changing nature and these increased demands that we're seeing, is there any additional country-specific criteria the State Department is considering to determine these additional security needs at our post? And secondly, what steps should be taken with host countries to honor commitments to the Vienna Convention to ensure that it is not an impediment to our security and to guarantee better the safety and security of our diplomats?
So let me just answer the first question. As I pointed out in my testimony, for 200 years we relied on the Vienna Convention, and that is something that we have to continue to rely upon. And if we don't, we can't be in many of these places, because at the end of the day, we cannot provide our own security enough to protect ourselves in these host governments. And in most, if not all, of those countries, that works. But in this new environment, as we call the new normal, especially in new governments that are standing up, the Secretary implored us to go to visit those countries with the Defense Department and ask that question, which is the division between their desire to protect us and their ability to protect us. So the answer to that is we are looking at each and every one of these countries to make that determination and determine the risk factors that exist, and do we have it right as we look forward to making sure that we're protecting ourselves appropriately.
No, and all I would add, Congressman, is that this is a reality that we're going to have to deal with for some years, and not just in the Middle East, but it's particularly true there with all the revolutions and transitions that are taking place. It's post-revolutionary governments that are going to have a very difficult time building security institutions that work, and we're going to have to take that into account and adapt to it, as Tom suggested.